Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we have a list. Finally, it's been a while. I've been on a little bit of a, just kind of reviewing things one fragrance at a time kick lately. Sometimes I get on these little trends and I just kind of do my own thing. It's kind of one of those jobs that is like a thankless job, when you're reviewing these fragrances that, very few people care about anymore. They're not on the hype train. Really only the true frag heads are going to go back and kind of watch some of that content, I think, but I don't care because I want my channel to be the way that I want it. And the way that I want it is to just be kind of a, almost like a storybook or a journal of what I was wearing and how I feel about those scents and stuff like that. And so, I like having a little bit of an encyclopedia aspect to my channel where you can go look at the playlist, see the different brands and fragrances I've talked about. And, I've put up over 750 videos in a couple of years. That is a lot of content to go back. So it's always funny to me when somebody finds my channel for the first time through some random video, and then I see them start going through all my videos. There is a lot of stuff to go through. And that's exactly how I want it. But I know that people love lists, and lists are a great way to kind of, talk about a lot of fragrances at once and just ramble. And as the Ram, I love to ramble. And so, this is going to be a list. It's going to be a list on celebrity fragrances in my collection. Now, my celebrity list is going to be different from every other celebrity list that you find if you actually run like a YouTube search. You won't find many, if any. I haven't seen any celebrity lists that are going to be this geared to the vintage side of things. So we're going to start with some things that are a little off the beaten path. We're going to do some that are extremely rare and hard to find. You're going to have to really hunt for some of these. So there's some rare oddball bottles, which I love talking about with you guys. And eventually, my hope is to review every single one of these. But just as an aside, before we get going, let's do scent of the day. So today, I am wearing probably one of the greatest Chypras ever. I would put this up there. I think the more I've worn this, the more I really think this is top 10 Chypra of all time category. And this is a Chanel from the Exclusifs, and this is 31 Rue Cambon, the Eau de Parfum. So they put out the Eau de Parfum in 2016. I think 2007 maybe the Eau de Toilette came out. They discontinued that. But you know what this smells like to me? It smells like a blend of a true old school fruity Chypra like Mitsuko with a vintage green tilt. Okay, so imagine like an old school green Chypra like Y. This is the Parfum de Toilette. Not the new stuff for men that they made and called Y. And then they put out genius marketing name like Y Live. I think it was Y Live, but everyone, of course, made fun of it and said, why, this fragrance makes me want to ask myself, why am I living wearing this thing? And this is back when YSL was a powerhouse. I mean, before what has happened in the last 20 to 25 years with Yves Saint Laurent, they were one of the greatest fashion houses of all time, especially on the perfume side of things. I know their designer side is they're ready to wear, all that good stuff is completely different. But on the perfume side, they have just absolutely crashed and burned. I've never seen a house. Well, that's not true. But they are one of the houses that has crashed and burned the hardest in the last couple decades. And so if you go back, this is a fragrance that came out in the 60s, 1964 for women. This is the vintage Parfum de Toilette. This is a pressurized bottle, which it's an absolute, you put your finger in the trigger spot to spray it. And this is a fantastic fragrance. I mean, I'm going to review it one of these days, but I think that this fragrance really set off the green fragrances in the 70s, which then, of course, influenced. So you think about something like Chanel No. 19, those kind of green fragrances, Private Collection by Estee Lauder, those type of green fragrances that even influence the people today who want to make amazing green fragrances like Frederic Malle. His green scent Synthetic Jungle was inspired by many of the fragrances from the 70s, which was inspired, I think, by this. So 31 Rue Cambon is kind of like a blend between an old school, traditional, fruity Chypra and kind of like this green, because the green touches in here are unbelievable. And you know what else is unbelievable in here? The iris. Actually, I think this whole line, the Exclusifs line, is kind of built around iris as one of the main notes in many of the fragrances that I've smelled. But the iris in this one in particular, the powderiness of it, it's a little bit peppery, but mostly powdery, and then that cistus labdanum and that heavy patchouli in the base. It's unbelievable. I love wearing this stuff. Huge fan. Some guys may find it a little bit too feminine. I have no problem. No problem wearing 31 Rue Cambon at all. Okay, so let's talk about celebrity fragrances. So fragrances that are sponsored or endorsed by a celebrity, if you will. So first of all, what ended up happening is celebrities started to see that the huge margins in the perfume game. Okay, so what happened is they started to realize, gosh, if I just put my name on this, I don't have to do anything. Some other person, company will make the scent. My name will just be all over it, and I'll make a ton of money off of it. And once they realized the margins in fragrances, celebrities started coming into this space like nobody's business, especially over the last 20 to 30 years. So some of the names of celebrities, which I do not have any bottles of, which you will not see on this list, but let me just give you a breakdown of how many have their own fragrance line. Soulja Boy, of course, he has the new one that everyone's talking about. It's like S-Boy, D-Boy, D-Bag, I can't remember what it was called, but there was like a million reviews of it. And then Jessica Simpson has one. Ariana Grande, she came out with Cloud, which is like a Baccarat Rouge 540 cologne. I hate that DNA. And then Paris Hilton has her own brand. Billie Eilish, of course. Sabrina Carpenter. Hailey Kiyoko. I don't even know who any of these people are, to be honest with you. Gabby DiMartino. No clue who that is. Sofia Vergara. Again, no clue. Mariah Carey. I know Mariah Carey. Jennifer Lopez. J-Lo has her own brand. Britney Spears has her own brand. Adam Levine has his own brand. Christina Aguilera. Kate Walsh. Beyonce. Antonio Banderas. Cristiano Ronaldo. Jennifer Aniston. Dolly Parton. And Katy Perry. And I'm sure that's just like a small subsection of how, how many people have endorsed perfumes over the years. I remember with Halston Z14, there used to be like a Dale Earnhardt endorsement, but he wasn't his own fragrance. He was just on, it was like a special edition or something. Just there's so many endorsements and this, that, or whatever. And honestly, many celebrity fragrances suck. That's the reality of the situation. Many of these brands, which I did just mention right now, which you will not see in the video, I despise. If you smell them in passing, they all smell like that disgustingly modern, sweet, generic. They all smell the same. And so a lot of the fragrances I'm going to talk about today are different. These are the celebrity fragrances that to me stand out. And, if you've been following my channel for a long time, you know that every single bottle on this list I purchased with my own money. There's only one thing on this list which was given to me. Actually two, but they're both mini. One's a mini, one's a Discovery Atomizer. And they are gifts from someone else in the community, not a brand. So all of these were, I liked them enough to purchase with my own money. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to start with a couple strange ones because these are not celebrity fragrances per se, but they're kind of honorary mentions because they reference a place, okay? So they're not referencing a man or a woman, but they're referencing a place, okay? So the first one we're going to start with is a discontinued fragrance, and this fragrance has been discontinued for decades, by the way. But it's one of those fragrances that you can still find at a respectable price. So if you want to get your nose on what proper vintage fragrances smelled like in the 80s, but you don't want to spend a lot of money, this is one of my recommendations. It came out in the year 1988, and this is called Maxim's Pour Homme. And if you've ever seen this writing right here of Maxim's, and you've ever been to Paris, you'll know exactly what this is. This is in reference to the very famous Maxim's restaurant, which I would love to go to one of these days. It's on my list, just Paris in general, but it's like a historically ranked landmark. The great Christian Dior used to visit there, the man, not the brand, the man used to visit there religiously. It was his favorite restaurant. They even have, I think Vanilla Diorama, I think Vanilla Diorama was named after a dessert that he used to get at Maxim's or something like that. It was like a story about it, but he loved Maxim's, and the pictures of the place are absolutely beautiful. I mean, it looks like you're walking into an art gallery. The stuff on the wall, the architecture, I mean, it looks extremely high class. You're gonna have to probably wear a suit and tie, I guess, is my guess to go to a place like this. But it's interesting because I think Maxim's ended up getting purchased by Pierre Cardin at some point in the future and then sold, and so it's a historical landmark. But this is actually named after the restaurant, obviously. But what's interesting about Maxim's Pour Homme is I believe this was done by a master perfumer. I don't know who. There's no perfumer listed on the note listing, but my guess is that whoever made this went on to have a very successful perfume career in as the decades and years went on. Again, there's no perfumer on Parfumo, but it just smells like it was done by somebody who really knows their stuff. The bottle was designed by the great Pierre Denard, one of the greatest bottle designers of all time. And you can see kind of the sticker on the back, distributed in the US by Gary Fran Limited in Milford, Connecticut. How's that? And I actually have a backup bottle of this. I like this so much. So this is kind of a leathery, spicy, woody take. It opens up with bergamot, carnation, and lavender. So it has that old school feel, of course. It's going to feel like an 80s fragrance. There's another celebrity fragrance coming up on the list, which came out, I believe, a year before this, which is very close to this. But the leather in this feels like maybe there's a little bit more castoreum in the base than the one we're going to talk about later, which if you kind of know your celebrity fragrances, you might know which one I'm hinting at here. But there's woods and amber and jasmine in the heart. Many of the 80s masculines that smell animalic and, you know, have some funk to them use interesting floral notes in the heart. So here it's jasmine, but it's not any jasmine like if you're scared of white flowers, I wouldn't be scared of this one bit. And it dries down to leather, musk, and oak moss. Of course, that oak moss always seems very textured, but this is a brilliant fragrance for the money. Value for money is absolutely through the roof on Maxim's Pour Homme. I will review this one of these days, but absolutely love that stuff. And for some reason, I want to say, rumor I heard was someone like Dominique Ropion or like a big name made this fragrance. I can't confirm that, but for some reason that's bouncing around in my head. Okay, so that's the first one. The second one that's named after a place instead of a man, so the second honorary mention, man or woman, is this. And this is Caesar's Man. So if you've ever been to Caesar's, of course, they've got places all over the world. They own Harrah's and Horseshoe and Tropicana, Flamingo. I mean, they've got brands all over the place. Caesar's Entertainment does, excuse me. But the big one, of course, is Caesar's Palace. So if you've ever been to Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas, it's an adult playground is really what it is. It literally is an adult playground. Gambling, shows, food, shopping, pools, exotic, palm trees and Ferris wheel. I mean, it's, drinks, alcohol, and all the good stuff. The Garden of the Gods pool. That's a good place to be at night, I'll tell you that. So this is a fragrance that actually came out in 1987. So this came out a year before Maxim's Pour Homme. And it's actually still being marketed. This is a vintage bottle. I think the older ones say Legendary Cologne Spray. I want to say that's what I thought, but someone told me the new bottles now say it too. But I think they took the Legendary off and it just said Cologne Spray for a little bit. Then maybe they put it back on. But the vintage, or the newer bottles, I should say, will say distributed by Palm Beach Beauty. And I think Palm Beach Beauty is kind of one of those shite distributors. For some reason, I want to say they're like out of China, that they just distribute, in the US, and they cut the materials as cheap as possible. The new bottles of this are not what the vintage bottles were. If you can find an older bottle, it's fantastic. It's a little bit like Drakkar Noir meets Duc de Vervennes à l'Extrême. And so you get this kind of rosemary, bergamot, vervain opening with geranium, lavender, fir balsam, and then a base of amber, oak moss, patchouli, and sandalwood. And this particular fragrance has a lot of dihydromercenol in it, but I think it's very well done. And if you've ever smelled something like Jill Sanders' Man 2, I think that was a Pierre Bourdon creation. Let me get it real quick. I can't remember. Is it 2 or 3? Let's see if I can find it all of a sudden. Maybe I will not be able to. It is Jill Sanders' Man. Oh, shit, it doesn't say. Well, this is what it looks like. This is the Pierre Bourdon creation, and you can see the green juice similarity. If you like Drakkar Noir, that sort of DNA from the early 80s, this sort of very masculine fougere take with dihydromercenol and modern freshness. This uses more fruits and stuff at the top, but this is a fantastic, absolutely brilliant fragrance. I love this. I love wearing these type of fresher fougeres in the heat. So my favorite time to wear fougeres, I know some people love wearing them in the cold. I prefer to wear them in the heat personally, because in the cold, I want to wear my ambers and tobaccos and ouds and stuff like that. So, okay. So those are kind of 2 honorary mentions. The third one is also a little bit of an honorary mention because it's named after a television show, okay? And this, I actually got this bottle for like 25 bucks from Sense of South Jersey. So thank you very much, mate. This, he said it was his father's fragrance, and he was like, it's not my thing. I absolutely adore this stuff. I think it's amazing. It has aromatic and vanilla-like touches, but it's a little bit, it also came out in the 80s, okay? It came out in 84, and this is called Carrington. So there's the bottle. Charles of the Ritz was the distributor, okay? So Carrington is, first of all, this is a fragrance that smells, to me, this could easily be a $200-300 niche fragrance today, easily, by the way that the materials and everything smell. But if you're familiar with the, it's called the TV soap named Dynasty. That was a huge show in the 80s. And if you know, Crystal or John Forsythe and Linda Evans were the actors, the stars of the show. They played Blake and Crystal Carrington, okay? And so those were, they were huge. People were rushing back to their TV to watch Dynasty. And, you know, they were a very rich family in the show. They had money and stuff like that. But the man was extremely well-groomed, you know, clean-cut, in a, you know, tuxedo a lot, nice press shirts. And it really does feel, this feels like a very upper-class fragrance to me. It feel, you know what it feels like? If you know that what I've been calling on the channel this, I've been calling it an amber fougere. Okay, so if you kind of know what I've been talking about with things like Zeno or Guerlain's Heritage, right? This sort of amber fougere take. But imagine that they're taking that DNA and adding a lot of sort of vanilla and tonka bean and this sort of heliotrope vibe, which adds this very spongy powderiness to it. Very textured. Heliotrope to me is very textured. And they've added that to that amber fougere type style in 84. So really what's interesting is, you know, in 1984, this is almost at like the cutting edge of that amber fougere trend. They did things a little different because they didn't have Zeno, and then of course there were so many that fall into that category. If you go watch my review of YSL Jazz, you'll hear me ramble about some of the ones that fall into that category from the mid to late 80s to early 90s, right? Escada pour Homme and stuff like that. But this is early in the trend, 1984. And I don't know how well this did sales-wise, but to me, the blend of, you know, that sweet sort of vanilla, which is very well done, not the disgusting sweet notes you think of nowadays, but that heliotrope, musk, amber, vanilla thing in the base with tonka is offset against this extremely sharp amber fougere that is really accentuated by anise. And so the anise in the top gives a little bit of throwback to the 70s. So think about things like Azaro pour Homme or something like that, right? That sharp anise in the opening. And I love the contrast between the very sharp anise and the sort of aromatic, vanillic feel to the fragrance. And it just blends brilliantly. It's masculine while also being somewhat playful. And I think this is an amazing fragrance. I'm going to review it one of these days. But Carrington by Charles of the Ritz, if you will. They were the distributor back then from 1984. Long discontinued. So the first one's discontinued. Caesar's Man is still for sale, but I think the new one is not what the old one used to be. And then Carrington, which is also discontinued. So now we're going to get to the real celebrity fragrances. The first three were a little bit of a warm-up. I would consider Carrington a celebrity fragrance too, but Maxim's and Caesar's Man are more homages to places, if you will. So the fourth one is also discontinued, unfortunately. Sorry, but I think you can still find it on discounters. Sometimes they come and go. I got my bottle for like 30 bucks, 35 bucks. It was very, very cheap. And this is from the house of Sarah Jessica Parker, and this is called Stash. So it comes in this little baggie, and here's the bottle. So Stash was created by 2 perfumers, Laurent Le Guernec and Clement Gavari. Now, I don't know if that is the son, grandson of the famous Max Gavari, who made Halston Z14. But when I see the name Gavari or some, you'll notice in the fragrance world that it really is sometimes like a family business. The offspring of some of these famous people who are in the industry, they continue on the trend. So I wouldn't be surprised if Clement Gavari is related to Max Gavari in some way. So this is, here's the bottle. And there's actually a flanker of this that came out. This did well enough to earn a flanker, apparently. But this came out in 2016. It's now discontinued. And this is a very well done sort of designer woody fragrance, if you will. So if you like cedar, if you like woods and frankincense, you'll like this fragrance. It's offset by a beautiful grapefruit zest in the top with sage, which keeps it masculine. Even though this is unisex, I think this leans a little bit masculine because of the sage, which historically can be herbal and aromatic and very dry, and black pepper. So it's peppery, sagey, woody. There's an interesting pistachio note in here, which kind of gets just over, you know, maybe if you really bend your mind a little bit, you can think you're smelling pistachio, but mostly what you're getting are those dry woods and frankincense with musk and vetiver in the base. And I think for a designer fragrance that this is very well done. You know, is this going to compete with some of the really rare, hard to find celebrity fragrances we're going to talk in a little bit? No. I mean, this is probably more to the bottom of the barrel because it is 2016 and it is a designer. And, you know, I think this was a cheapie even when it came out. Now that it's discontinued, people try to sell these online for hundreds. Don't pay that. If you find a bottle for cheap like I did and you're a collector, you like discontinued fragrances, go for it. But I do think the perfume inside, the juice inside is worth wearing as well. It's a respectable fragrance, let's put it that way. And Sarah Jessica Parker, in case you guys don't know, of course, she was famous for her role in Sex and the City, and she was rated as the 100 most influential people in the world last year, which boggles the mind. That really boggles the mind somehow. Of all the people in the world, there's not 100 people more influential than Sarah Jessica Parker. Okay, whatever. So yes, that's. I guess you guys know more about her than I do. I just know she's in Sex and the City. I don't really know anything about any of these celebrities, mostly because I just don't give a shit. But okay. So next on the list, we're going to go to a Pharrell Williams fragrance, and this is also discontinued. Sorry. If you enjoy hunting down discontinued fragrances like I do, though, this will be a fun video for you. It'll give you some ammo. And so this is from 2014. And actually, even though it's a Pharrell Williams fragrance, you can see right there, it says his name right on the front, Pharrell Williams. It was done by Comme des Garçons. So you can see, produced by Comme des Garçons, who is a very respectable fragrance house. And this is called Girl. So this is a unisex fragrance as well. Even though it's called Girl, there's nothing girly about it. I have no problem wearing this. In fact, I think it leans masculine, similar to Stash. Well, not similar in smell, but similar in that it leans slightly masculine. What it smells a little bit like to me is a blend between Narciso Rodriguez Pour Homme for him, the EDT, in the gray, you know, looks like nail polish bottle, with that very sort of concrete petrichor-like smell. Mixed with Fahrenheit is kind of what this smells like. So it's very peppery. You get lavender, neroli. And what really sets this apart to me, though, is this unbelievable iris note in here. I couldn't believe how good the iris is in here. The iris is brilliant, mixed with styrax and violet. And so it gives it a very waxy feel, but there's a little bit of Fahrenheit peeking through. You know, there's a little bit of that violet leaf. So even though they list violet, it's a little bit like violet leaf to me. It's almost like Fahrenheit meets Narciso Rodriguez for him. From 2004, 7, I forget what year that came out, 2007. And then what you do is you blend it with a little bit of this fresh laundry-like lavender. And the reason I say that is because the neroli adds this freshness to the fragrance, and the lavender adds this almost laundry-like feel. So it almost feels like a laundered Fahrenheit to me. The base is wood, sandalwood, cedarwood, vetiver, and patchouli, and it's very well done. This is an extremely well blended, very well put together fragrance, you know, irregardless of the very strange cap. This was done by the artist Cause, if you guys, I have no clue who the hell that is. But yes, so Girl for me is one of those fragrances where you used to be able to pick this up for 10 or 20 bucks like I did. Now it's selling for hundreds because it's discontinued. They could not give this away when it first got discontinued. You know, I think some of the weird bottle and everything put people off. But if you can find that for cheap, which may be a harder task than Stash right now, I would say go for it. Okay, next on the list. Oh, and by the way, Pharrell Williams is, I guess like a, can you believe he's 50 years old? He's like a hip-hop, R&B, Neptunes, I don't know what you would call him, rapper slash record producer slash songwriter slash businessman. I don't know. He apparently, did you know he's the cousin of Timberland? And the actual cousin, not like, hey, that's my cuz, but no, like his actual cousin is Timberland, which is crazy. But so yes, okay. Next on the list, we have 2 Andy Warhol fragrances. So Andy Warhol, for those of you who don't know, he's obviously a artist and passed away in the late 80s, 87, I believe it was. But of course, he was very popular for his Campbell's soup can paintings, and I think he did some stuff on Marilyn Monroe, and you know, just a very well kind of this experimental artist, if you will. He had his own warehouse, if you will, and that's going to come into play with one of the fragrances we're going to discuss. The first one is a little bit of a hidden gem, if you will. It's one of those fragrances no one talks about. I bet you there's not a review of this on YouTube. I would bet. I'd be shocked if there was a review of this on YouTube. But this came out in 1999. There's a couple caps I've seen with this one. One of the caps actually has a $sign on it. And then, I don't know if they just cheaped out and tried to make it a little bit cheaper. Some of them also seem like these were colored. These little $signs were colored. But this is from 1999, and this is called Andy Warhol Pour Homme. So, like I said, the newer caps don't have the little $sign on the cap as well, just on the bottle. And this is a creation by Dorothy Pio. And Dorothy Pio is a perfumer who I actually really rate pretty highly. I think she's done some damn good work. Memoir Woman is top of my list. I have a decant of Chambre Noir by Olfactive Studio, so I'll be talking a little bit about that. She also helped make Myths Man, which I absolutely love. She helped make Fate Woman, which I absolutely love. She made Les Jeux Sans Fates by Javoy, which is my favorite Javoy fragrance. So she has a resume. She definitely has a resume. I would love to pick up Memoir Woman, and that's basically one of the top of my to buy women's amouage list. I think it's brilliant. Just as good as the man's fragrance to me. She's also done some stuff from Maison Crivelli, which I've never smelled, and some other niche houses and stuff like that. But she has a resume. I respect her work. I respect what she's done. Although I don't think she's a big name in the industry, I respect what she's done. And she made this in 1999, okay? And they consider this like a synthetic green fragrance, and it does feel green. But, you know, in the 90s, there was a lot of floral, fresh fragrances that came out. So if you think about the early 90s, you had stuff like Givenchy's Insensé, which is discontinued and now goes for crazy prices, but I think you can still find bottles floating around for a respectable price. But if you like that sort of blend between floral and fresh, but marketed towards men, because it's, you know, sitting on a bed of moss and woods and musks, this may be one to check out. Like if you're just looking for kind of a fragrance that smells like, you know, nothing modern, right? Because this came out in 1999. So it has a slight vintage feel to it, but in the 90s vintage. So there's going to be a fresh feel overall. This is definitely a summery fragrance to me. I would not wear this in the winter. You could, because it has the woods, but I just think it would work better in the heat. And it's got basil and tarragon in the top. So it opens up very green, and it does smell a little bit synthetic, but I think it's because of this fresh. They wanted to give this almost like synthetic fresh feel, like you know, Andy Warhol painting a canvas or something. There's this fresh splash across the whole fragrance, and it is a heart of cardamom, so a little bit of spice, but really what I get is the jasmine and the mock orange note, and those two florals kind of give it this you know, floral freshness, but marketed towards men because of the cedar wood and sandalwood and musk and moss in the base. Great fragrance, actually. Well, let me take that back. I need to wear it more, but I think it has the possibility to be a good summer wear for, I got this for under 20 bucks. So for me, I mean, this is like almost a no-brainer, especially as a little collector's piece. Andy Warhol's Homme from 1999. So what ended up happening was Andy Warhol signed, or the, I don't know, the estate of Andy Warhol, or whatever you want to call it, the foundation of Andy Warhol, signed an agreement with Bond Number 9. So they discontinued all these older Andy Warhol fragrances that were done by COFCI, who is a cheaper distributor. And now they started putting out Bond fragrances. And there actually is an Andy Warhol that I've never smelled that I would love to smell. It's a purple bottle, and it's got his face on it. I never smelled that one. That's like kind of one of the unicorns. Goes for big money if you can find it. If you can even find it, you'll pay 500 or 1,000 bucks for it, I bet. And I just, I'm not going to pay that, especially not blind, but I'd love to smell it one of these days. But the one that I have is called Andy Warhol's Silver Factory. So now they have actually renamed this to Silver Bond. So once the Andy Warhol, I guess, agreement became terminated or ran out, I don't know how it worked, but they renamed this Silver Bond, and then they discontinued it because they wanted to keep it around for a little bit. This is a very interesting take on an incense. Very interesting take on a frankincense. Like if you want a frankincense that smells different from most frankincense scents that you have in your collection, like if you don't just want like a church incense, you don't want it to be, Avignon or something like that, you want it to be different, this is one I would recommend getting your schnoz on if you could. It's lavender, bergamot, and grapefruit in the top. And with that frankincense, you get iris and jasmine and violet. So Andy Warhol's Silver Factory, there is something that feels slightly silver. And if you look at the bottle, it's like, a half and half bottle, right? It feels like some of it is the iris and the violet kind of creating this oriental, woody, ambery blend. And then some of it is the resins and the frankincense creating this sort of, silver-like blend. And so it's an interesting fragrance. I'll review it one of these days, but I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Andy Warhol's Silver Factory. Would I go buy a bottle? No, absolutely not. But do I enjoy getting to know it? Yes. So thank you to the perfume god person who sent that to me. And then we're going to talk about an Elizabeth Taylor creation. Now, Elizabeth Taylor is absolutely gorgeous. She's one of like the, old school prime Hollywood, classic Hollywood stars she started in the 40s and 50s. And of course, she became the highest paid movie star in the 1960s with her films like, I think she played Cleopatra and some of her other big Golden Globe actress successes. She co-starred with Richard Burton. And so this is actually the masculine version, but I would love to get a bottle of the feminine version as well. I think they're both discontinued now. But this is Elizabeth Taylor's Passion for men. And I love the old Art Deco style bottle. It reminds me of like being at a premiere and the lights are kind of going off. You know how they do the spotlights in the sky. I like this bottle. It's very classy and minimalist. And this came out in '89. This is discontinued according to Parfumo. It's lavender, bergamot, neroli with jasmine, nutmeg, vanilla, musk, patchouli, and vetiver. And so it has this very enveloping, warm feel. Some people compare this to Obsession. I don't see the Obsession comparison other than there is a little bit of this sort of, powdery oriental feel from the way the musk and the vanilla and the patchouli all blend together. Beautiful for just, one of those fragrances when you just want to wear for yourself. It does have an old school feel. I know some people complain about that, but I like that type of feel. To me, I like that old school vibe. So, and you can see, I mean, they spared no expense on things like the atomizer and stuff like that, but the juice inside is quite good. The bottle that I have is, I don't know if you can see that, but it actually says distributed by Parfums International, okay? So I don't know what the new version that was distributed by Elizabeth Arden smells like, because she bought the rights to Elizabeth Taylor's fragrances and then discontinued some of these. So I don't know what the new one smells like, but the older version is quite good. Okay, next on the list, and that's also not super expensive. You can find bottles floating around for for pretty cheap. Okay, next one is one of my favorite celebrity finds. And actually, if you said, Ramsey, I'm going to give you a full bottle of one of the celebrity fragrances that you don't have, this would be it. I absolutely love this stuff. I only have a mini of it, but I have a full review. It's one of the few fragrances we're going to talk about today that there is a full review on my channel. So you can go check this out. This is from 1992, and this is Omar Sharif Pour Homme. Now, there's also a women's version, which I'd love to smell one day, but you can see Omar Sharif, Parfums, Omar Sharif. And Omar Sharif, before we talk about the fragrance, is a Egyptian actor. He's known as probably one of the most famous Egyptian film stars ever, if you will. He did things like Lawrence of Arabia, Dr. Zhivago. He won a Golden Globe for Best Actor in that. And he was an interesting guy. He never thought he was good enough in any of his films. Very interesting take. You can go see my, he was born in Alexandria, and he died in 2015 at 83 years old in Cairo. But you can go check out my review. We go into more details of his life. But I wore this to bed last night because I knew I was going to try to do this video today. And what a fragrance this is. I am in love with this. You know, the opening reminds me of something that no one else, like if you go look at the, there's the bottle, by the way. It's a brilliant piece of artwork, almost like he's wearing either a beautiful open shirt or like a chain or something. And so this is a mini, obviously. But, oh man, I wore this to bed last night, and I'll tell you what, the way that the aldehydes in the top kind of interplay with the animalic castoreum and leathers, out of this world. This is like, so if you ever smelled Lagerfeld's Photo from the early 90s, they both came out in the early 90s. Photo and Omar Sharif Pour Homme. There's this weird aldehydic sort of freshness in both of those. But the Lagerfeld stays fresh, even though there's honey and stuff like that in there. It never goes, heavy. This does. This goes oriental, but it opens up with that very green aldehydic, you know, artemisia and basil and thyme and stuff like that. But it dries to this very animalic castoreum leather moss. Just a brilliant creation. I would love a full bottle of this because I could just lather the shit out of it. It's fantastic. So go check out my review. Omar Sharif Pour Homme, discontinued, unfortunately, but what a celebrity fragrance that is. Okay, next on the list. Oh, and again, I think I mentioned this at the beginning, but this video is not ranked. So these are not ranked in any order. Maybe I'll come back and do a ranked celebrity video fragrance one of these days, but for now, this is just celebrity fragrances in my collection. Excuse me whilst I hydrate. Made it. Okay. Next on the list, we have a fragrance that is issued by Etat Libre d'Orange, which I recently reviewed one of their fragrances called Virgins and Toreros. And so you can go check out my review of that. That one's discontinued according to Parfumo. But this one, I owe a review to YouTube for this one day. This is called Homme of Finland. So this has been renamed, okay? So Homme of Finland is no more as Homme of Finland. Maybe the, contract expired and they didn't renew it, kind of similar to what happened with Andy Warhol in Bond number 9, I don't know. But this is now called Clean Suede. Okay, so they've changed the name. It's now called Clean Suede. And I kind of see the name, sort of. There definitely is a suede note in here. And it opens up with aldehydes and lemon. And the lemon feels like lemon meringue pie in this release. It's very strange because it feels like lemon meringue pie with birch tar. So it's slightly smoky. There is a saffroline note in here. So there's a little bit of the saffron feel, even though it's not listed. Pine, pepper, suede, ambergris, and vanilla are the notes. And you can see the color of the juice here is, once some air got into the bottle, the juice color changed and got very dark. That's the type of vanilla that was used. So if you see a new bottle and it's white, don't worry. I think they still smell the same. Etat Libre d'Orange takes good care of their fragrances. I've never had any problems with the brand as far as reformulations go. But, and if you don't know Homme of Finland, his name was Tuukko Valio Laaksonen. And he's known as Homme of Finland. He's obviously Finnish. Go figure. He's a Finnish artist who specialized in highly masculinized homoerotic art. Okay, so, and highly influenced by the late 20th century gay culture, they say. So, if you are not on a work computer and you want to maybe, spill some tea or gasp at one of the advertisements for this, go look up the commercial or the advertisement for Tom of Finland. Very muscular men in that one, I can tell you that. Okay, next on the list we have Alain Delon. Now, Alain Delon is probably one of the most, for me as a vintage lover of perfumes, Alain Delon is one of my favorite celebrity brands in general. He is a French actor and one of the most prominent actors. He was seen as a sex symbol in his day, okay? So he's still alive as far as I'm concerned. I think he's still alive. He's in his late 80s. But in his day, he was a sex symbol. I mean, straight up. He was what women wanted him and men wanted to be him, if you will. And so I couldn't tell you his acting career timeline or anything like that, but I can tell you his fragrances are fantastic. And the first one we're going to talk about is his very first fragrance, which is a good place to start at the beginning. This is 1980 it came out. Discontinued. Both of these versions I'm going to show you are discontinued. This is the original bottle. You can see it doesn't say classic right here or anything like that. This is a tester that Anuj found me from Enchanté. Thank you, Anuj. You can see the writing on the side. I mean, just in case you needed to see that from space or something. Demonstration, not for sale. And so this is they call this a spicy resinous fragrance. It's a very fresh, the juniper and the basil and the lavender and everything that happens, the mugwort in the top, all of that in the top is extremely noticeable, especially the very fresh juniper, okay? And it's mixed with aldehydes, pine, so it's very green, and honey. But the honey is done in a fresh way. So if you like the way that Marbert Man, Raymond Chaillan did Marbert Man in that honey sort of style, but in a fresh honey style, you'll kind of get the idea here. But the vintage, I actually have a comparison video on the channel. So if you really want to dive in deep, there is a comparison video on the channel between Alain Delon, the OG, what they put out in the 80s, and then the reformulated classic version. Now, this is one of the few examples where I actually prefer the classic version. This is a fantastic fragrance, but there's something about the way, oh my God, just the way the geranium, the aldehydes, the pine, the honey all play together in this version that I am in love with. One of my favorite takes on geranium. If you ever get the inkling for a fresh honey fragrance, this is great in the heat. Fantastic in the heat. Very spicy, resinous. But you do get the citruses and the very sprightly juniper and stuff like that. Brilliant fragrance. Fantastic. What a start to his career, if you will. There's also a flanker of this, which I would love to hunt down, but I can't find. It's called AD+. It's on the list. Well, it's not true. I can find it, but I don't want to pay for it. Well, I can't pay for it right now. But one day, maybe one day, I'll hunt down that flanker AD+. Okay, so Alain Delon, and then he came out with, in 87, maybe one of his most iconic fragrances. And you can see I've backed both of these up because I love them so much. This is called Iquitos. So I've got the 50 mil and I've got the 100 mil. And I love, oh my God, man. So, Iquitos is actually done by one of the most, I would say, underrated perfumers of all time. And his name is Gerard Anthony, okay? So he made Iquitos. And Gerard Anthony made many other amazing fragrances. I have a perfumer's portfolio video on Gerard Anthony if you want to do a deep dive into the man himself. But this is cardamom, ginger, mandarin orange, rose, cedar, patchouli, sandalwood, vetiver, musk, leather, and amber. And that's according to Parfumo. I think there's more here. This is the fragrance that actually lost out to what turned into Dior's Poison. So if you've ever smelled Poison, this is the OG Esprit de Parfum. What a fragrance this is, man. I mean, if you put this on, everybody will smell you. Everyone will smell you. It is so unique and just a brilliant choice. So they went with the right, they made the right call. But the runner-up, what they almost picked, was this. And so what's interesting is Alain Delon said, thank you, I'll take that, and turn it into a masculine fragrance, because in the late 80s, it was very popular for men's fragrances to have a lot of florals in them, but animalic florals, okay? A lot of indoles, a lot of use of civet. And that's why I think this note listing on Parfumo is not complete, because I get a lot of civet in this fragrance. There's a lot of this animalic type feel. And some people say this smells similar to a Montana fragrance for women called Parfum de Peau. I've never smelled it, but that's from '86. It's discontinued as well. But that has like blackberry and stuff like that in there. There's none of that in Iquitos. Maybe just the overall feel of the fragrance is similar. But I am in love with this. This is gonna go. Both of these Alain Delons are gonna get a Hall of Fame fragrance review on the channel from me, God willing. Okay. So that is my Alain Delon collection. Now we're going to switch to a man who probably needs no introduction, the great Salvador Dali. If you have an hour or two, and you can even put it on like 1.5 or 2 times speed, but go just watch. There's like, just look up Salvador Dali on YouTube, and there's like hour or 2 video on just showing his artwork. And man, it is absolutely, I love stuff like that. I absolutely love art. I remember being a little kid, we went to Washington, D.C. on a trip my parents took me on when I was small, very small. Must have been in the mid-90s. And we went to the art museum in D.C. and I was enthralled. And my dad was just shocked by how much I liked it. He said, man, if I would have known you would have liked it this much, we would have spent a lot more time here. I've always loved art. And, you know, even though Salvador Dali's art is not the type of art that I would traditionally lean towards, I can appreciate it, if that makes sense. You know, very surrealist, sort of, I don't know what you would call his work. You know, he's kind of an artist that, how would you describe Salvador Dali? I'm sure there's a proper way to describe his artwork, but, you know, very symbolistic, very, you know, a little bit like Picasso in the sense that, you know, he is using a lot of, you know, things that don't seem to go together, but kind of making them go together. But I love his, and you know what's else is interesting about Salvador Dali, just on a side note, is if you really want to go down the rabbit hole, go watch some of his interviews on, like, some of the talk shows from back in the day, Johnny Carson or whoever he went on back then. What an interesting character he is. I remember him getting on there and saying, Salvador Dali and time have an agreement with each other. And the guy's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, you don't understand. Me and time, we have an agreement. And so he's just a very, I like people who are, you know, a little bit strange and different and weird. And he definitely was that, I'll tell you that. And what a stash that guy had. Holy shite. But we're going to go in backwards order of his work. Don't ask me why. But in 1998, this is Salvador Dali's Le Roi Soleil Homme. So this is also a Gerard Anthony creation. Probably my least favorite Gerard Anthony creation. Although part of me wonders how fresh this bottle is, because I need to compare and contrast, because I don't know if I'm getting 100% of what this fragrance should be, but I think it's spicy, floral, bergamot and grapefruit in the top. But what he did is, again, remember, this is 1998, so he used the florals as a way of implying some sort of freshness. So there's geranium and jasmine, and he added it in this very fresh, spicy, floral aspect. So it feels like a fresh 90s fragrance done in a woody floral type take, if you will. Interesting. Not my favorite Gerard Anthony fragrance, though. And in 1992, okay, Gerard Anthony and Elias Hermendez, who is a very underrated perfumer, did this. This is, now we're talking more of my speed. 1992, this is Salvador by Salvador Dali. If you've ever smelled this little gem, this is Hugo Boss Spirit. One of the Trinity. Oh my God. the trinity of Boss fragrances that they put out in the early 80s that I think is just Hall of Fame material. We'll get a Hall of Fame review from me. This is sort of in that ballpark. This is a couple years after Hugo Boss Spirit. It's not as green. There's a little bit more aldehydes in the top, I think, and you get a little bit more of the cinnamony floral aspect and the leather in the dry. Well, that's not true because there's a huge leather note in this, but it comes a little bit later on. But you just get a little bit more, maybe vanilla and tonka and stuff like that. It's definitely a spicy, leathery fragrance, but it opens up with old school tarragon, one of my favorite notes. It just doesn't have as green of a feel. This is a very deep, I have a review of this on the channel off of a mini before I bought a full bottle. But this is in that ballpark. So if you like things like Atkinson's Duke or Boss Spirit, check out Salvador by Salvador Dali. And you can see, by the way, his artwork on the bottles are absolutely brilliant. The sad sun is one of my favorite Salvador Dali symbols. I absolutely love that right there. And this is another one. You can see the lips right here in his artwork around the bottle. Just brilliant. Fantastic bottles. Back when they used to know how to make a bottle with that. Even though the cap feels light, it's still an amazing opal blue. And you can see the name on the collar. Brilliant packaging. And probably my favorite, of course, the most iconic, and my favorite fragrance as well, 87. And this is the one that's going to be similar to Maxim's to many people. This is called Dali pour Homme from 1987. I have a backup of this as well, and one of the best caps of all time with the lips. Just brilliant. Some people say this has a, gosh, how can I even say it on YouTube without just saying it? Maybe it smells like other lips. That doesn't really work either, but I guess it does. Dali pour Homme from 1987. It has a little bit of a private area smell, let's say. And so this is lavender, tarragon, anise, basil, bergamot, lemon, mandarin orange, moss, jasmine, geranium, heliotrope, lily of the valley, patchouli, amber, musk, vetiver, and vanilla. And this is a Thierry Wasser creation. And this is one of my favorite Thierry Wasser fragrances ever made, ever, of all time. Even all of his stuff at Guerlain, this, I think, may be his best work. One of his best works to me. And I understand it's like a product of the time and all that stuff, but what a fragrance he created. And then to think Guerlain just took one of the greatest perfumers and just put him up on a shelf and won't let him do anything. Okay, that is Dali pour Homme. Next on the list, we have a very rare, hard to find. You're gonna have to fight for this one. If you're a collector and you're like, holy shit, that's a celebrity fragrance I'd love to own, you're gonna have to find. This one's a hunt. This is not gonna be an easy find. Maybe one of the hardest ones to find on the list here. This is from 1984, and this is called Jean-Louis Trintignant pour Homme. Now, what's even more interesting is that this only has one note listed, which is musk. And that's complete bullshit. There's a lot more going on here than just musk. It feels very woody, spicy, smoky. It feels like there's some artemisia. It feels like there's some anise. It has a little bit of that, vintage, of course, heavy oak moss. Probably something heavy, weighing it down. There is something heavy to this. Maybe a little bit of, I don't know, maybe a little bit of patchouli or, something along those lines. Outside of just the musk, some woods, but a brilliant, creation. I mean, if you like the way that spices were done in the 80s, so if you go back to the vintage fragrances from the 80s and you think about things like, there's a little bit of a green touch in here too, but think about things like Christian Dior's Jules, or think about things like Santos by Cartier, or, think about things like, Derby by Guerlain, or Ville pour Homme, with that sort of spicy leather-like feel. But imagine it being a little bit more musk heavy, okay? Imagine it being a little bit more musk heavy and old school. What a fragrance this is. I mean, I understand that it's like hard to find and all that stuff, but for the folks like me who love collecting these rare, hard to find pieces, this is one of the greatest to me, I would say that this is one of the greatest celebrity fragrances that very few people talk about on the channel. I wish I could get like a proper note listing. It's I mean, it's just not there. There's nothing there. I know that note of just musk is BS. There's way more than that going on in here. Maybe it's musk heavy, but in this bottle is in impeccable shape. It was unsprayed. I couldn't believe when I found it. So yes, Jean-Louis Trintignant. And I guess we should talk about the man too, because he was a French actor. So he was competing with people like Alain Delon. And God Created a Woman was his breakthrough role. Apparently, he is still alive. He's 91 years old. Jean-Louis Trint. I wish I could tell you more about his life. I just don't know because I'm not French. But if you guys know more about Jean-Louis Trintignant or any of these obscure, I guess not obscure, but maybe more famous in other country actors, leave it in the comments. Okay, 2 down, or 2 left, I should say. So now we're moving on to 2 of my all-time favorite celebrity fragrances. This is not a ranked list, but I did save a couple of my favorites for last. Well, the last 4, just in general. Dali pour Homme from '87, Jean-Louis Trintignant, and then these last 2 are just, I mean, if you're going to start collecting celebrity fragrances, these 2 are great places to start. One of them's a little easier to find than the other. The first we're going to discuss is this. And if you know, I don't even have to say anything. This is Luciano Pavarotti. Hey, oh, hey. Pavarotti, one of the greatest operatic tenors of all time. His voice, man, the way he sings Nessun Dorma. If you've ever seen, just go to YouTube and type in Pavarotti Nessun Dorma. If you've never watched that, it'll give you absolute chills. I mean, the man excelled at what he did. He was perfect for the role. Perfect. I mean, everything about him, the way he carried himself, his personality, very enigmatic and very, his personality just shined through his words. Not just his words, not just his voice, but who he was, what made him, just shine through, right? And so this fragrance is a brilliant take on the man, all right? Not every celebrity fragrance nails this. This one does. To me, this is Pavarotti in a bottle. This is excess. This is a man who lived life, damn it. That's it. He lived life. He did all the things that if you have a bucket list, he did them. You know, that's the way I think about it. He did them. Think about drinking the finest alcohol, being with the most beautiful women, driving the most expensive cars, living in the most amazing penthouses, going on the most exotic vacations. This man lived, right? This fragrance smells like that. It smells like excess to me. It really does. And not Paco Rabanne excess, but true excess. This smells like, this is a leathery, spicy, patchouli heavy fragrance in the realm of Givenchy Gentleman from '74, but brought forward to '94. And they've changed it up a little bit. So they took that heavy patchouli honey DNA, which I absolutely adore. It's one of my favorite DNAs of all time. Givenchy Gentleman, Giorgio Beverly Hills for Men, Pavarotti, and Moss Brex by Tom Ford. They all fall into a little bit of this category. Moss Brex is discontinued, impossible to find. That's, if you said, Ramsey, you can have one Tom Ford fragrance in your collection you don't have. Go. Now, I do have a decant of it, but I don't have a full bottle. Moss Brex, instantly, right now. Give it to me. Not even thinking about it. As much as I'd love Noir de Noir and all those other, give me Moss Brex. And so this is bergamot, ivy, neroli, petitgrain, Sicilian lemon, vervain, geranium, cedar, clove, iris, patchouli, damask rose, oak moss, tonka bean, amber, honey, apopanax, Russian leather, vanilla, and Liatris spicata. Now, the Russian leather note in this shines in the heat. Okay, so if you wear this in the heat, you're going to get much more of that leather. If you wear it in the cold, you're going to get much more of the honey and the papanax, the resins, the patchouli. But what a fragrance this is. And I have had 3 bottles in my lifetime. One of them broke, and I had to decant most of the juice. So I saved most of the juice. I lost a little bit, but I saved most of the juice. And I have 2 bottles left. I have this is 125 mil, and I have a 75 mil. So I'm set on juice because I still have maybe 50 mils floating around from the bottle that broke. And then I have these 2. What a celebrity fragrance. One of my all-time favorites. Rich Mitch's all-time favorite celebrity fragrance as well. Discontinued, but you can still find bottles floating around. Luciano Pavarotti from 1994. Hey, oh, hey, what a fragrance. And finally, my scent of the day yesterday. I wanted to do this video yesterday, but I had my daughter all day. I couldn't leave her and do this video, so here we are today, doing it today. Worked out perfectly. No complaints at all. Love spending time with you know, my sweet angel, my little pumpkin. But I wore this yesterday as my scent of the day. I was going to do this video because of that scent of the day. I wore this and I was like, shit, I got to do a celebrity fragrance video. This is going to be a hard one to find too. This will be just as hard as Jean-Louis Trintignant, even though this came out about 11 years ago. It's a ghost. I mean, literally a ghost. We had to go to Germany to get this bottle, and we got, I think, probably the last 2 bottles on the internet that were available at the time. Now, I'm sure some might pop up here and there, but if you're a collector and you see this at a good price, grab it. I think, personally, for a fume head, for a frag head, for a perfumista, whatever you want to call yourself, this is the greatest Giza Schoen creation of all time. Okay, because a lot of his fragrances are generic, and, you know, he does the eccentric molecule shit where it's just one note, and just, you know, he's just getting rich off of all that shit. But as far as, like, creation, as far as being an artist, right, as far as trying something different, this fragrance absolutely checks every single box. I'm going to review this. It's going to get a Hall of Fame review as well. I would back this up. This is, if you said Ramsey, you can back up any of these fragrances right here. Well, some of them I've already backed up, so that's an easy call. It would be this. This is, if you don't know what that K stands for, it stands for Kinski. Klaus Kinski, the German actor. This came out in 2012. This is labeled as a spicy animalic fragrance. My God, man. I wore this yesterday, and I was just like, fuck. It's only the 3rd time I've worn it as my scent of the day. But, every time I am absolutely blown away by this fragrance. It's aldehydes, cannabis, my favorite cannabis note I've ever smelled, period. I've smelled some cannabis notes. Most of them don't smell like cannabis. This one does. There is a little bit of a there's a little bit. Like if you go heavy on this and go to work, people are going to think you were like maybe sitting in your car doing a little so cannabis, blackcurrant, juniper, and bergamot, with castoreum, and the castoreum is there from the beginning. It's like castoreum and cannabis, and magnolia with marine notes, hedione, rose, nutmeg, patchouli, vetiver, labdanum, musk, styrax, amber, benzoin, cedarwood, and suede. And absolutely brilliant, like standing ovation, Giza Schoen. What a fragrance. And again, you talk about capturing the man, okay? Capturing the man. Klaus Kinski was absolutely insane. He had a screw loose, maybe 2. But his roles, he was an intense actor from what I've seen. I've looked up some bits and pieces of his roles. You know, it's hard to watch a German movie, right? He's dead, long dead, long dead. He died in the early 90s. There were rumors of mental illness going on with him. Let's just put it that way. I don't want to go into the details. You can look up the details yourself on your own. Let's just say he was considered to be a monster, like in real life. Like the guy had problems, serious problems, and he took it out on the people around him, okay? He was one of those unstable geniuses, okay? Is the way you would characterize him, I would say. This captures that. This captures almost like a man self-medicating, who is in the depths of depression. And yet he gets on stage and just puts on one of the most brilliant roles you've ever seen. I mean, he doesn't even have to act because he is the role. You know what I mean? He just walks in and just nails it. And then he goes back to his life where he's just in, and he influenced so many people, and so many people loved his movies, his casting, his acting. But the people in his life who knew him, they suffered. I mean, he put some people in his life through hell. He was not a very good human being. I'll just leave it at that. I mean, it won't take you but 1 second to look up some of the apparent abuses that were leveled against him. So forget the man. We're talking about the perfume. The perfume nails the man, okay? This is not in support of who he was or the things he stood for or anything like that. But as a fragrance, Giza Schoen absolutely captured Klaus Kinski in a bottle. It's a brilliant creation. I think it's Giza Schoen's best work. I think it's a shame more people can't smell this. And I know it is, and you can actually see the made in England. You can actually see the eccentric molecules bottles here. This is what their bottles look like. No cap. No cap. Never comes with a cap. But I am in awe of this fragrance. This is a fantastic fragrance for an artistic fragrance lover. Okay, we are over the hour mark. That is my celebrity fragrance list. I hope you guys enjoy this video. Over an hour to make, many hours of putting it all together, and you know, all the stuff you have to do to make the videos. I very much appreciate you guys watching, commenting, all the stuff you do for the channel, whatever it is, liking, you know, telling other people, I don't know, whatever it is, but we've grown much faster than I thought. And it's funny because there are some fragrance channels that I found, let's just say they're like a woman or two, and they just sit there, we're going to spill some tea about this fragrance, and they've got like 10 million subscribers or something. And then you have channels like me, who I'm just happy to have my little 5,000 subscriber club. And honestly, I am. I'm never gonna compete with the girl that's like, you know, on there, doesn't know what the hell she's talking about. Oh, this smells so pretty. It's so pretty, and she has 10 million subscribers. But that's the way it is on YouTube. It just is what it is. I'm very happy with the little niche I carved out. I'm like the intellectual fragrance channel. I hope you guys know that I'm genuine and real. These are not paid for. Brands are not giving me money to show these to you on the camera. Well, they would probably demand some sort of editing anyways, and I'm not doing that shit. So this is just me spilling my heart to you guys for an hour and turning off the camera and uploading it. So I hope you guys took something from this. Do leave a comment. Let me know what your favorites are. Let me know if there's other celebrity fragrances I should try from the past. The modern stuff, whatever, I don't care. But if there are some celebrity fragrances from the past that I should try, let me know. Cheers, guys. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time. Bye-bye.